Evening and welcome to Millbrae City Council. Could we please have roll call?
All council members are present.
Thank you. I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight we have a presentation, and that presentation is from PG&E, a self-report to the California Public Utilities Commission, and we have Scott here tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, city staff, and members of the public. My name is Scott Hart. I'm the Public Affairs Representative for PG&E to the City of Millbrae. And we are doing an update presentation based on a self-report we had done a couple weeks ago regarding cathodic protection on our transmission lines. So I will work my way through. Hopefully I can do it well. Figure out how to...
We got some help for you.
Perfect. Thank you. I can handle arrows. All right. So I also have subject matter expert David McQuilling with me to answer the questions I'm sure you'll have in case I'm unable to answer them. But let me go ahead and get started with my presentation here regarding cathodic protection self-report overview. So on October 18th, 2016, PG&E submitted an update to a previously reported self-identified issue on noncompliance to the California Public Utilities Commission, which was related to instances of insufficient cathodic protection on various portions of the gas transmission system. And this original self-report on the topic was made to the CPUC in June of 2012, reporting that PG&E had identified about 180 indications of inadequate cathodic protection that had not been remedied promptly. After further review of PG&E records, another 490 indications were reported in February 2014, and then 490 were reported in the updated submission October 2016. Of the 490 identified in October of 2016, one location was within the city of Millbrae, within the city limits. As part of the CPUC resolution mentioned there, California utilities are required to self-identify instances of noncompliance on their systems, which at times trigger notifications to local jurisdictions of those notifications. In instances when notifications to local jurisdictions are required, public affairs employees like myself will notify city managers and county administrators where the instance was located, which was done on October 18th by me to the city manager, Marsha Raines. Once notifications are made, a sample of the communication is provided back to the CPUC. And so just make sure everybody's on the same page here to identify what is the cathodic protection that was identified to be inadequately identified and remedied in this situation. So cathodic protection it's a technique which you guys are probably familiar with because you use it on your water lines. Any steel lines that you have, you most likely have some type of cathodic protection on. It's a technique to mitigate corrosion of a metal structure. So remember back to our chemistry classes. So what you're doing is you're setting up essentially a very small, a low-level electric current, which is the external power source, supplies this current, and it flows through the earth to the gas piping. And then in the process, it diverts corrosion to an anode, what we call a sacrificial anode, and through what's called passivation. At the cathode, the steel pipe is protected from corrosion, and the anode itself corrodes instead. And so that's cathodic protection.
So hence you can see when he gave the notification that he referred to earlier to the city manager's office, I said, it would really be nice if you could come explain this to the public and to the council in this way he's here. Good work.
Excellent. Thank you. So what happens is when we evaluate the performance of these corrosion control systems, we do routine monitoring of the output of the external power source. So we're checking, the actual current and the levels of current that are being sent out, the machinery that's sending out the current. We're looking at all of the different aspects of it. So it's part of our maintenance, also monitoring. And so we collect pipe to soil potential measurements along the steel gas piping, so that helps us understand where there might be potential corrosion. We collect pipe to soil potential measurements when the steel gas piping system is exposed. So if it's exposed to atmosphere, or anytime we are getting our eyes on it, it's also part of our process where we are going to look at because it's part of how we examine, part of our protocols to make sure the CP, the cathodic protection, is functioning. And then we investigate and remediate readings that fall below the minimum criterion established by the CPUC in that particular order, 192, Appendix D. Now, on February 23rd, 2015, PG&E performed a verification dig on line 101 on South McDonald Road in Millbrae. And you can see in the map here. So we completed the...
Take the microphone with you, the handheld, please.
Sure. Apologies.
That's okay.
Okay. So we completed a verification dig, indicated there with the red, the red bubble. And what we did is we were able to get our eyes on the pipe. And in doing so, we also did the verifications that I mentioned before with the soil sampling and...
Before you leave that slide, where is that for people that can't see it as well as you can? It's at the freeway and the airport adjacent to the Public Works plant, is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. And so, upon investigation, there was no corrosion found on any of the pipe inspected. One of 4 pipe to soil potential readings, well, I'll stick with this, collected in the excavation was slightly below allowable criteria. So it was outside of the range of what we find to be our allowable electrical current levels. And so reading was collected again on 2/23 in 2015, so February 23rd. And PG&E procedures require that any deficient reading be remediated within 15 months of discovery or no later than 5/23/2016. And so what happened is that date is obviously passed, and so we were out of compliance with that date. PG&E personally confirmed adequate levels of CP at this location on the 10th of this month. And during testing, PG&E personnel noted that pipe to soil measurements changed when BART trains passed the location. So additional testing and additional research is being done to look into potential impacts coming from the BART, the electric currents that run BART. And so that's kind of where the presentation ends, and I'll open it up to questions now regarding this one indication that came out of that self-report that impacts Millbrae.
What would be the impact? Give an example of impact.
Well, what we've seen so far is that there was no identified corrosion. So what we're looking at is seeing what is giving us readings, the readings that we got that were outside of the norm. And so right this time, we don't know if it's BART, if it is potentially something that we haven't identified in the soil and pipe relationship and interaction, or if it's something else that's working with the machinery or with the actual current itself.
And
David, is there anything else that?
do you have another timeline for where you have to go back and read it? Do you have your own deadline for this?
So we actually are, right now, we're out there investigating this site. So this site actually is, we have worked with city, got encroachment permits, and we're actually doing the investigation. I'll let David talk a little bit more about what that investigation would be.
I would do questions first or more talk? I think.
He's going to answer your
Oh, okay, because, all right, thank you. Perfect, thanks, Scott.
He's got the mic. You want him at the podium?
I'll take this back from you.
Okay, excellent.
You have to get closer to it, sir.
So your question was on
You
time.
need to be really close to the mic.
Yes, timelines.
So we sent a crew out last Thursday to take the readings, and we discovered some fluctuations in the readings when the BART trains passed. So over the weekend, we put a monitor on that collected readings every second. to get a full sweep. We saw some indications that happened. They cleared up between midnight and 5 when the trains aren't running. So we have an anomalous condition. We've contacted BART. We're in the process of getting data from them on their train systems, and we are conducting additional investigations. We hope to have those wrapped up, by end of year. We certainly will keep you guys posted in whatever form you want on the investigation. Part of this is going to hinge on BART. We've got to get the data from them for the engineers on my staff to evaluate it and determine what's going on. Now, back to the self-report and the concerns that you may have. We had a single location, and we took readings on the pipe in 4 quadrants, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. One of the 4 readings was out of criteria, but we visually inspected it. So we have seen the pipe at this location. The dig report said no corrosion was found, which is assurance, at least at that point in time, that there wasn't anything going on in terms of corrosion activity on the pipeline, in terms of safety of the pipeline. So we're going to make sure that there's nothing going on with BART that potentially could cause metal loss, not only at that location, but anywhere on the pipeline, to make sure that the readings we collect are indicative of pipe conditions. And further to that, on this line, we've got 8 locations we monitor within the city. And so this process will help us to determine, are we monitoring at the right locations? Are we missing something that potentially could have a safety impact? At this time, we have no indications of a safety impact.
Okay. Councilmember Pappen.
I'm not good enough, you gotta.
I want to make sure everybody was.
This line is scheduled to be replaced when?
I can't answer that. I don't know. That's.
Okay,
Actually, we have no scheduled timeline for this line to be replaced. It's not, at least not within the next 10 years. It's not on any of the lists for replacement that I've received. It was just in-line inspected, so it just had the smart tool that went all the way through it that gave us the data internally that allows us to basically, which is kind of the MRI of the pipe, that it gives us then indications where we go and look for any potential metal loss. And so based on what that inline inspection we have right now, there's no indication of a need to replace this pipeline.
So
I ask you to go back. Last time I was the mayor, I received a call from PG&E informing us that one of the lines along the 101 in Millbrae was going to be replaced. And it was delayed till, 2017, if my memory is correct. So I would ask that that be checked, because first and foremost, I could not believe they were going to wait that long to replace a line that involves not only probably one of the busiest highways in this area, but also is in close proximity to the international airport. So I don't know, I got a call, maybe it was from you, Scott, or somebody at the time, saying that the line along the 101 in Millbrae was going to be replaced. So I don't know where or when that information changed. Maybe the standards have changed, that you're only inspecting them now. But this has always been a deep concern of mine.
Is this the same line?
That's what I don't know.
Sure. So we did, since the time you were mayor last, we did rebuild the Lomita Park station. We completely rebuilt, put all new valving in there, automated valves. And there were portions of Line 101 that were replaced as part of that. I'll find out and verify for you which portions those were. The portion that was inline inspected is from Aviador all the way down to Milpitas, or actually to Palo Alto. We inlined a 21-mile section that we inline inspected last year. And so that segment of Line 101 was deemed to be, there were no indications of a need to replace. Its integrity was verified by this inline inspection.
Okay.
I will verify for you which portions north of there have been replaced. I know that there were plans to replace portions around the Lomita Park Station, and I'll find that out for you.
That's greatly appreciated. Given our neighbors in San Bruno, you can understand our sensitivity. Thank you.
Understood.
With regards to this problem right here, when do you say, it's all good, and I'm walking away?
Keep in mind, we don't trust Bart either.
Oh, I wish I could have a definitive answer. The data is going to drive the investigation. So we're going to collect data at this location, we're going to expand the survey, and we're going to chase the problem as far as, the readings take us. I have crews that are working the problem, and I can, provide updates. But unfortunately, at this stage of just discovering a potential issue on Thursday, I can't quantify it.
So that would be great. So if, once Councilmember Pappen gets her update, can you give us an update on this too, please?
Certainly.
Councilmember Schneider?
Sorry, Vice Chair. Where is the Lomita Park station that you said was replaced? Where is it physically located?
It is physically located in SFO, or San Francisco Airport property, right at the border between San Bruno and Millbrae. So it's
on the other side of the school, then there's that fence.
It's out in the middle. It's about another 500 to 600 feet beyond the fence out towards the slough that separates, that's right up next to 101.
Okay, and when you said Aviador down to Palo Alto, did you mean at Highline Canal or Aviador where it starts a quarter of a mile or half a mile farther north?
Right next to the BART station.
Okay, so basically Highline Canal then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm, sure.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. This may be a little bit off topic, but since you're here, we did get some questions this past summer over the large project that was going on, I think in the Green Hills area. Do you have any information on that project, what that was all about?
So there were a couple different items. First of all, we did what we call our super crew came through, and what we do is we do a half year's worth of inspections, leak detection inspections, and we use the new technology called Picaro, which is a vehicle-based, vehicle-mounted detection system that's 1,000 times more sensitive than our handheld detectors. And so that, in combination then with our repair crews and other inspection crews, we designated an area and we made our way through Millbrae. That created some immediate construction as well as some follow-up construction. And in the Green Hills area, there is a designated construction project. As you can, like with maintaining any system, anything like that, you have designated roads that you recondition, resurface on an annual basis. We have pipelines that we identify then to be replaced or modernized. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. First and foremost, compliments to your traffic control people in that area, because I live there. We have been informed back when that's kind of that neighborhood is a red zone as far as the pipes that went in there. So I think the sign said the construction is going to be really ongoing for a while.
Yes, I mean these projects can take up to anywhere 8 to 12 months, depending, because what we're doing is we're replacing the main in the street and then running new service laterals to each of the homes, and so you can imagine that does take quite a while and a lot of coordination. And so we try, and what it means we do a little stretch at a time, and then we work our way through and then go back, and once we have enough in place and then we have enough laterals run, then we do the connection. So it's kind of a cyclic cycle to the construction over the course of those months. I will get you the exact dates. I don't have those at the top of my head, but
I don't need to micromanage that.
Okay.
What I will express deep concern for right now is your current issue. We'd like to see everything documented here. Nothing, when you're dealing with BART, and your dealings with our city, we want documentation here because BART is, we have no representation on the BART board. So whatever you hear from them, we've gone through this with current developments and things like that. I assure you, you better be documenting whatever, because if anything goes wrong here, we're going to look to both parties, and we hope nothing ever goes wrong here. But trusting both you and Bart is kind of a scary perspective. We like you, Scott. Don't get me wrong. It's just
No, I understand.
PG&E has a long way to go to gain their trust back, and so please, and keep in mind too, what people tend to forget is this, at some point in time, maybe not our lifetime, that's going to be a high-speed rail stop. So with electrification of Caltrain and everything else, there's going to be a lot more electrical things happening in that area. So please watch closely. Our public safety is extremely important to all of us.
And it is to us, please, Councilmember Pappen, it is very important. And we totally hear you on the sense that we take this very seriously, and that's why we wanted to make sure to come and clarify. Right now, there is no safety issue with this pipeline. We've identified, looked at it, gotten our eyes on it, found no indication whatsoever that the readings we got were a result of corrosion. And that's what the readings are intended to tell us, where there's corrosion or of the potential. So what we're doing is, and that's what David's group is doing now, is figuring out what's creating this anomaly for us, this anomaly in our data. So we will, and we will update you. I'm sure David will document everything because this is a CPUC reported instance. Our documentation has to be tight. And regardless of what's in the media, we're much better about it now. In fact, we've gotten multiple certifications that we actually, the way we approach it now is industry leading. Obviously in the past, not necessarily so, but now David and his team, the protocols they put in place are top notch. And we're making sure to do that. And so I'll let David respond if you want, if there's anything you need to add to that.
The only other thing I will add to it is that while we do have a relationship with BART and their engineers to obtain data, we are not waiting on BART. And so we have indications of a problem. There are ways around it. It's easier to work with them, and we have established some relationships. So at this point, I believe we can work with BART to quickly get the data we need to do our investigation. But if not, we will go the tougher path of figuring it out on our own. But ultimately, we are responsible for the pipeline that is in your community, not BART.
Thank you.
We
Wanted to
appreciate
hear
that. And as a parting note here too, you got those high-powered wires. The first thing the airplane's going to hit is your wires. So just a thought for the future. If those could go underground, it'd be helpful.
Councilmember Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thanks for being proactive for the Green Hills area, but I did get a couple of calls. Is there a phone number they can call about, they're not happy with some of the construction or repairs that were done at private residents? Can you give that to us, and maybe the city can give those to whoever calls City Hall?
I will. And there was a name, email address, phone number included in the letters that went out, and I'll make sure to send that back over, as well as I'll make sure that we get that. If it's not in that letter, then I'll make sure we get something over to you that will be an email address and phone number of a person, not the 5,000 number.
Okay, great. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Your cell number would help. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here, and we'll look forward to the update.
We'll get those to you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Okay, City Manager, could we please get the agenda overview?
We got it. Thank you so much. So this evening, we first have a report of bills and claims since your last meeting, as well as council consideration of the meeting minutes of the July 26th meeting. As a consent calendar item this evening, we have quarterly investment schedule for the first quarter of the fiscal year 2016. I'm looking at the agenda, says -12, and I believe that to be a possible error. We'll clarify that when the finance director steps up. We have an item of new business this evening, which is council consideration of a motion to authorize the city manager to execute Amendment 1 to the agreement with CSG Consultants Project Management Services for the Community Center Rebuild Project. This is in consideration of the item. We've contracted with Peter Ingram. Peter Ingram is former city manager in another city in San Mateo County and has been working with us on moving the Community Center Rebuild Project forward. The recommended consultant agreement would be a not to exceed for the agreement from $16,000 to increase it to $196,000 and extend the duration of the work from 2 months to 12 months. We do expect that the project will go longer than the 12 months, but we will bring back some further recommendations for council consideration at the end of the period considered in this recommendation. We then have council comments, followed by closed session where you'll consider performance evaluation and negotiation with the unrepresented employee of city manager. Following that, we recommend that you adjourn to your next meeting, which, if you recall, will be 1 week from tonight. A little bit different schedule is the reason that I mention it.
Thank you. So with that, we need to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of July 26th, 2016. We have a motion and we have a second. Please vote.
The minutes of the July 26th council meeting are unanimously approved.
Thank you. We have no oral reports tonight, so we'll move to public communications. And our first speaker is on the subject of miscellaneous, Stephanie Cordy.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, honorable council members. I have a little list. I have no PowerPoint, unfortunately, but I will try not to keep you too long. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Wayne and Gina, for keeping us more informed on all the happenings that are happening in Millbrae, and on the code enforcing of garbage, etc. And I understand somebody has been hired, which is great. So then we don't have to put any more paintings in the middle of the street to cover up our cigarette butts or whatever. So that, thank you. But thank you, especially Anne, has been very helpful to next door. The natives are very restless and are very unhappy and very concerned. And that's actually why I'm speaking. Unfortunately, as always, they complain, but some of them are my age and don't drive anymore, or they drive and do not drive at night, so they cannot come here. So I just voice a few concerns. Safety, again, number one. Where are the freeway cameras, license readers that we were talking about with the police department, whatever? There has been no update on that. And people are very concerned about it because there have been more burglaries. There have been more people almost hit in the streets. So, safety, burglaries, where are we at that? They're not expecting a solution tomorrow, but some communication of what are we doing. Then I had some concerns when I attended the last session of the workshop for the General Millbrae Plan, and the people that were there, we have that many consultants on that general plan, and they're all standing up there, and with their nice little smiles, and they're asking not questions, they're giving you a PowerPoint with little dots and everything on there, and of what the 3 sessions before, which were attended by, I believe, 40 people, the walking tours and all this, and their workshops. And everything is wonderful. And they put little dots onto the map of what is going to happen by the year 2040. And it's all very well, but then question and answers come up, and the first thing a gentleman says, and in case of you were not there, it was Vince Musi, says, where is my project on this map that has been approved by City Council, and I don't see it up here? And and none of the consultants could say anything, and there are about 50 people there that are listening, and no answer. Then is
We're on a schedule here. I'm
okay.
Sorry, I don't
That's
wanna-
fine. Can I come back with the rec center when you discuss that? Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
So anyway, safety and
Got it.
whatever.
Thank you. Okay, Marilyn Moda from,
No.
Marilyn?
No, you want to talk when the rec center item comes up, you can come up at that point without a, I'm sorry, Joan.
Good evening, Council. Thank you
She had a
for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to come and talk about just two items that pretty much correlate together. So at tonight's meeting, you approved the July 26 minutes. And in those minutes, it does bring up the topic of 30 Hermosa that was brought at the meeting on July 26. I know then on October 10th meeting that they came back to approve the planning, the redesign of the building, but nowhere in that meeting on October 10th said anything to do about parking. And as it states in the minutes, it says that the council commented to conduct a parking study and enforce current parking restrictions in the neighborhood, explore possibility of parking permit program for the area. Staff responds, parking is an existing problem and can explore a parking permit program. So my concern is, on the October 10th meeting, nothing to do with parking was brought up. Unfortunately, I was out of town, so I wasn't able to attend that meeting. But what also I believe correlates is in the closed session tonight, the performance evaluation and negotiation regarding the city manager. I am under the impression that the city manager's responsibility is to make sure that that is on the agenda and reviews the minutes. So there should have been something to do with parking brought up in the October 10th meeting. I believe that there isn't anything at all that has been done. If the staff had looked at any of the problems of the parking or not, and I believe that there's a responsibility of the city manager and council to make sure that this takes place, because I know on October 10th, the review of the new design was approved, but it just cannot end there. And I believe it is, if it is the city manager's responsibility, that should also be taken into consideration under the performance evaluation that will happen this evening, that, that has not been acknowledged by the city manager. So I'd like to address that.
So we're not going to comment on that.
Okay.
We're just listening to your views.
Correct. Okay, so that's why I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that I think the two items correlate. And basically, if the city manager has any questions, she can review the minutes that are definitely in detail to refresh her memory. Thank you very much.
Thank you
And
very
for you
much.
to consider that again in your evaluation. Thank you.
Right.
Pardon me?
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, we could clarify. We're allowed to clarify. Yeah, nothing has been forgotten with respect to the parking. What came back to the city council was the design review. The parking is a study that will take longer.
It's part of the conditions.
Of course, of course,
Correct.
of course, but those are two different, separate issues.
Can we also clarify that no development has been brought forth to the city council regarding Mr. Musi?
Yeah, the status of Mr. Moosey's project is that he has submitted, he has not been accepted as complete. There is not a project of record. I wasn't in the room, obviously, the night the consultants were discussing the general plan, but they may not, as consultants, be aware of submittals that have not yet hit public review or been deemed complete.
And the process would include it going to the planning commission prior to anything getting to the city council? Is that
As well as the
Nothing.
Hermosa project, that went to planning and then came to council for review, and parking was an issue, and so was design. So those two things were taken into consideration and certainly not forgotten.
But the design was approved on October 10th, those minutes
And so was a parking study. For- Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor. So public communication, we'll go to the consent calendar, of which we have one item. Is anybody going to pull that one item off consent calendar tonight? Perfect. Quarterly investment schedule for the first quarter of fiscal year. We need a little clarification here. Year 2016-12?
The dash 12 is a typo on your agenda. It should stop after the 16.
Alrighty. We have a motion and we have a second, and we can have a vote.
The consent calendar item is unanimously approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go on to existing business, of which there's none, so that leaves us new business. And this new business is a motion to authorize the city manager to execute amendment number 1 to the agreement with CSG Consultants Project Management Services for the Community Center Rebuild Project, increasing the not-to-exceed amount of the agreement from $19,000 to $196,760, and extending the duration of the work from 2 months to 12 months. I know that somebody from the public would like to speak on that. We'll start with Stephanie. Yeah. Is that all right with you? Did you want to? Well, I think she wanted to finish what she had to say.
Yeah, that's all. Oh, absolutely.
It's up to you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, then you can sit down for a second, please.
So, thank you, Madam Mayor. The department head whose item this is was pulled away from City Hall on personal family matter this evening, and I apologize for that. This item, as you are aware, you appointed a subcommittee consisting of 2 members of the council to work with the staff regarding the rebuilding of our community center. You've had 1 session before the public to start to discuss what the future means, what an opportunity this is. We had the opportunity as a city to bring in a gentleman named Peter Ingram, who had served in another city in San Mateo County under similar circumstances, and have brought him in. He, under the city manager's authority, has been working with our insurance agent, with the city attorney's office, with recreation staff, to move the project forward and understand what the stages are. He's developed a timeline. We've had the initial 2 months worth of work, but before continuing on this path, we are here before you this evening to ask if we're on the right path. Do you want us to continue this method of community center rebuild, and ask for the authorization for continuing his services?
Okay, that falls right into my concerns, or somebody else's concerns probably too. That we're talking about almost $200,000 extra, and why don't, I understand he is a consultant, again, referring from a consulting firm. Why do we not hire somebody that is responsible and answers to the city or city council, to the city manager, whoever is above in charge? Or why is our public works not involved in that and supervising this? There has to be somebody on public works that could do it, and if there's not, we should probably hire somebody. That would be cheaper than having consultant upon consultant upon consultant, who then in the end stand there and give you lip service and do what they want. And if he's not doing a good job, he's going to be gone in a year. You pay $200,000 and you have not even had a shovel in the ground. That's just what I'm seeing. And I think probably rather than raise employees or city managers' salaries, maybe we cannot afford it. We are Millbrae, we have 22,000 inhabitants. We are paying $250,000 to a city manager for salary, which is, I'm sure, deserved. However, that means for my household, for each person in my household, $11.49. So far, I have gotten the 49 cents worth. I'm waiting for the $11. So I don't think Millbrae can afford to not hire somebody else and continue consultants and also pay city manager. So somewhere we have to stop whatever the expenses are, because we don't have that much money, I don't think. If we have unlimited resources, fine, but we don't. And again, at that workshop, one of the gentlemen was there. He said, "Oh, people, who is paying for all this?" Meaning the workshops and the consultants. And he was told it is federal grants, state grants, and some local. So he said, okay, so it's us taxpayers paying for it, which is true. So, and I think we should be a little bit more frugal with that. I have nothing against anyone, really, but I think we should hire people that stay with Millbrae and are concerned about Millbrae. Thank you.
Just to clarify, one of the items in the staff report mentions that this would be reimbursed by the insurance provider. So it's not a direct cost to the city. Is that correct?
That is correct. If the council would indulge for just a few minutes, some of the comments that were made, I would like to offer some additional information that may help the council arrive at a decision and give instruction to staff on how to progress. One of the comments that I thought I heard was the projects that we're working on, general fund, for example, is partially funded by outside grant sources and partially funded by city funds. It is a requirement, and the city attorney can address this possibly in greater detail, but it is a requirement of the state that in order to qualify for additional funding that has to do with transportation, water programs, et cetera, our general plan elements are current, and as the council is fully aware, you opted as a policy matter to instruct the staff to begin work on updating our general plan because it's woefully out of date, not in compliance with state law in many categories. So while we could, and the council could direct, and policy matters and decisions could be made to work on other projects or to defer projects, the general plan specifically in this question is a requirement of state law, and that's why we're proceeding down that path. Commenting specifically on the community center project, the option does exist for the staff for the council to set a policy matter decision tonight to direct the existing staff to do this work as opposed to hiring consultants. There is a capacity of staff that would make then the choice between this and other projects, and we could definitely make those decisions tonight. In order for us to continue to do the work that had been on our slate before the community center unfortunate incident happened and the center burned, to do the work that was already on our plate, and then to take the community center in addition to, as opposed to instead of other projects we were working on, we need additional resources. Staff is at capacity. We've talked about the large volumes of projects on our capital list and on our strategic goals. We are not overstaffed. Staff, I can assure you, in relation to other cities, is performing at a very high production rate, taking on the community center rebuild. If we are going to do that in addition to, we need to consider resources. Then the next question comes to, do we put a staff member on to do that work, or do we contract for a specialized type of service? And that's why immediately I didn't feel it was within our capacity to schedule a special meeting to talk about this, so I put somebody on for the 2-month period to begin working with our insurance carriers and begin the remediation of the site until such time as we could bring it forward and have the discussion we're having here tonight. So it's totally up to the council. Do you want to bring a staff member on and incur the retirement costs and the long-term benefits of a permanent full-time employee? And can we find a specialty to bring on that would have the needed skills that we are contracting for? Or do you want to contract? Or do you wish to do this project instead of other public works projects that, again, we've had the conversation. A number of our public works projects have been deferred over the years, especially when we, as a nation and as a state, we're in tougher economic times. We're now at a position where we have some money to spend on capital public works projects, and we're doing that. So the choices are the council's choices, and that's why we brought the item forward for discussion, and we're here to answer questions that you might have in making this decision.
What would be a salary for, what would be a salary for a full-time employee to take this on?
I would say not too far off of the range that you have here. I haven't done that cost analysis at this point.
With benefits.
Yeah, with, this figure would include, when you buy a consultant, you buy the benefit package too. So if we were to buy someone, I would say it would be at least in this range as a public employee in a full-time capacity. This person has a specialty that they bring to this, so it might take us some time to actually find that specialty.
And is this consultant a firm where we get a couple people for 196, or do we get one person?
We get the expertise of the firm. We have the specific assignment to one project manager. So CSG Consultants, for example, has a variety of expertise that they bring to the table. But we have one project manager that will be assigned to this project.
And then one other question, do they anticipate being finished with their project or their work to this point in 12 months? Or is this just to $196,000 for the first year?
That's for the first year. I do not expect the community center to be built by the end of the 12-month period. And again, the question will come at that point. Do you want to hire a project manager inside the building? Do you want to handle it inside at the offset of other things getting done? Do you want to hire a full-time person and bring them into the building? The recommendation that's coming forward is for the use of consultants because it is a near-term, less than 5-year project. To me, it should be a 3-year project. I don't have a timeline yet, so at that point I'm guessing. And I don't often recommend that you bring people onto the public payroll unless it's a longer-term commitment. But again, that's open for discussion.
And my last question for the moment is, are these the two options? Hire somebody on or only a consultant? Is there any other options?
Yeah, you could use the existing staff and substitute this project for other work product that they've been asked to perform. So you've set your priorities through your strategic goal process. You've asked that 6 projects get done, large groupings of projects. This is one of them. You've staffed with consultants and staff on a variety of other projects. So I'm not sure that addresses you. You have 3 options. One is, as I see it, one is to do this instead of other work that's already on the table with a city staff, to do this with city staff and add city staff permanent positions, or to bring in a consultant that will do this and at the end of the project not be around.
And at the end of the day, it's all looking at the same number.
It's very similar numbers, and again, the difficulty here is the expertise that you have for rebuilding a city facility.
Councilmember Lee.
Well, just clarification, it's not dollar for dollar. I mean, it's dollar for dollar until the project's over, because once the project's over, if you hire a full-time staff, you still have to pay their benefits for, past, if they retire here, we have to still pay their benefits. So that means hundreds of thousands of dollars, So that's the difference between hiring a consultant and hiring somebody full-time. We want to hire somebody full-time, which would be preferable, but we would have to have the work for that person to be able to, otherwise the city would pay a really high premium for, rather than having a consultant. So
That assumes you could find the expertise for that same price, which I'm not sure we could do.
Vice Mayor?
May I ask if this contract is approved and you said this will be more than a 12-month project, so we may need to retain this person for another year or two beyond this. Would that also be covered by the insurance, or do they only cover up to 1 year, or how exactly does that work?
We're still examining that portion. At this point, we understand these services would be covered. One of the thoughts in bringing it to you a year at a time is the type of expertise may also vary. As a community, we've not built a facility since the library was built, and that was one type of expertise. We hired certain consultants, and I was involved in that, as most of you know, from the county side of that facility. Even at that, the type of expertise to process a city, an organization like this through a project may vary, and that's why we suggested the 12 months, 1 year time frame. So we can revisit the whole conversation at that point, how we'll pay for it, what do we need, what are our needs at that point.
Councilmember Schneider.
Councilwoman, okay. I have a slew of questions. We've used CSG Consulting for quite a few projects, and it's very difficult to find out what we are ultimately paying for. But in the recent time, we had a CSG consultant who did a bid process that didn't come out correctly and had to be redone. And I know that I've talked to you, Marcia, about whether or not in that case, and now that I've read the insurance requirements that consulting firm must maintain, did we get reimbursed for having to go out and rebid that job and redo the contracts?
I don't know at this point in time. I'd be happy to bring a report back on that.
Okay, so first and foremost, to make it really clear, and as someone who used to be a consultant, if it's my fault, I eat it. I redo the work. And I do not charge doubly for it. So I'm concerned. I think that the resume for this particular individual looks outstanding, but you don't know who you're getting. And you earlier said that with this package, we're buying a project manager for $189 an hour. Don't quote me on that. I have to. $185 an hour, and that we're only buying him. But if other work within the company is off-sourced or down-sourced, what's the hourly rate that we're paying for that? Typically, a consultant contract is going to have a list of various costs depending on the skills of that employee, and I don't see that in here. So that makes it difficult for me to support this. There's only one price in here. There's no other consultants. On top of that, what I have heard that the city has done in many cases, as we've lost employees for whatever reason, we have filled them with contract employees or consultants who are taking up city desks, city phones, city resources. Typically, when you consult out, all of that is outside. It's not an additional expense we're picking up. Those costs, those office costs, are built into the hourly wage or the hourly amount that you're paying them. So, but I also understand that this person needs to work closely with Park and Rec and with Public Works. So is he going to be put into a space in City Hall where we're already tight because Park and Rec staff is working in meeting rooms? Where are we going to put this person, as opposed to our existing Public Works? Or are we pushing even more of our civil servants into an ever smaller area? I just don't see physically how you're going to do it. Then when I read the scope of services, I had a lot of questions on scope of services. I'm going through this quickly. One of the scopes is the consultant's going to identify other consultants. I understand the need for specific skill sets, but aren't our Public Works people capable of doing that level of work? And then when the time comes that you need a very specific architect, or you need a very specific electrical engineer, or any of those things, at that point, then we would contract out to get those specific short-term skills. I just don't believe that we need an outside project manager at this time. I think that staff is well capable of doing it. I think we can move some things around. I think we have vacant positions, and it's time to start gearing up and getting, stopping the turnover of staff and letting our Public Works staff work on this, as well as Park and Rec. My impression is, in fact, I have a beginning question. Who's the city executive team? The staff report doesn't say who that is. You would think as a council person I might know who that is, but I don't know. So I find these staff reports that we've been getting lately from CSG woefully inadequate with real information to let us make a decision that's going to cost the city millions and millions of dollars. I have more questions, but that's for me now.
Why don't you finish up? Give me an answer to those couple. I didn't hear.
Sure. If I'll get an answer of where are we putting this staff, who's going to get moved out, what real communication has been going on with our existing people, because I've heard on just last council meeting, the staff report that came through was never coordinated with the staff that would work on that particular contract area. So I'm very concerned that we've got these outside consultants and they are not talking to our staff.
Can I make a little comment?
Sure.
Well, I can see a lot of your points. Some of the points I'm a little confused too, and I'm not sure if that can help with the answers, because I would like the same answers as well. When you hire consultants with regards to using your spaces, I mean, time is of the essence. So if in fact they can sit in here and do some work, I would have no problem with that. And salary versus hourly, when you're a salary person, you don't break it down by hourly. So that's a little confusing for me. And
Would you like me to clarify that?
just one second. And then one thing I get your point. I would love to put everybody to work here, double time and triple time, and keep our people happy. But I think that you have to put into proportion also that when is this going to get done? Because if we're working these people on this project that are already worked to the brim, the next complaint I'm going to hear is it's taking 5 years to get the community center done. This is an opportunity to take an expert, and yes, do you get what you pay for? I hope so, to get it done, because time is money too. So those are my points too.
Typically in a contract, let's say that this gentleman has a secretary who's typing up his notes or doing something for him, you would have a salary schedule for that secretary position or admin position or an engineer 1 position or engineer 2 position. All of that would be written into the scope of services and or into the contract. In this case, we're contracting for one individual. If that individual goes away, technically this contract would become unworkable. Although you could slot somebody else in there. But you're saying we're hiring somebody with a very specific set of skills who may be here, but we're turning around our contract employees right now. The temporary park and rec person is already gone. The director's here and gone. How many times are we going to keep turning people over like this? And each time we have to do that, we have to retrain a consultant. The original $19,000 went for a deep dive into the city's business. Well, our existing employees are already there. They know, they don't need to do a deep dive into our processes. They know them.
And I think you just answered my question. It's going to take forever then.
Not necessarily.
Vice Mayor?
Just to clarify, in case this individual does leave CSG or gets a different job or something, we can then, and CSG does not have somebody who we find to have the expertise to work on this type of project, we can then get out of the contract, correct? Right. And, okay. With notice?
Yes. Find the termination provision. I think there's termination for convenience at any time with 30 days' notice.
What I've learned from our city attorney is that there's always a way out. Yes.
But if this individual just decides to quit one day, we still have to pay for an extra month of service, or we
Well,
can
if
say
he's no longer providing services
then
and this
the
whole scope of
contract is
work is
over.
based on his services, there would be nothing for them to bill us for.
Can we get the city manager to weigh in? Because to me, there's all sorts of different price of contract, and I think Councilwoman Snyder I understand your experience with project management, but this is a different type of project management and different type of contract as I think you're envisioning, and how I'm envisioning it. So, right. So that's why I think it'd be good to get the city manager to opine in this at this moment.
I'd like to ask some questions first.
Okay, Gina first, and then can we hear from our city manager?
Okay. I appreciate the specialty that we are trying to achieve here, and there's also a great sensitivity as to the number of consultants that we seem to be going through. Accountability to whoever is hired here is extremely important, and we have dealt with this group before. I'm having difficulty here in that we know our staff has a commitment to the community. That's key. When you bring in an outside consultant, the commitment to the community is just based on the dollar figure here. And I acknowledge what Councilmember Schneider said here. Yeah, I mean, if you've got a $185 an hour person and they're using their secretary, are you paying $185 an hour for that secretary too? I mean, these are the kind of things that should be addressed in going forward with anything. What's unclear to me is that we do know our staff is committed here. but yet they are committed also to the projects that currently exist. So I'm not willing to just put everything else on the shelf. The public is frustrated enough that we don't have the tennis courts. So all these other things are not happening. So I do believe we need to do something along these lines. What's unclear to me is how this consultant would be working with staff or completely independent of staff or in coordination with staff, because I think many times when a consultant is brought in, I'm not sure that staff they work with current staff, because our current staff knows the parks, they have a certain institutional knowledge, which I think is extremely important. So I would like clarification along those lines. I'm always kind of uncomfortable when you bring in somebody, even if they have a specialty. If it's unclear as to what our current staff, other than the city manager, would be working with our individuals who are on the front lines. I think that's extremely important to really making whatever development we have going forward, making it work for our community, because these people that we have working here already know that. So it would be really nice to know that if we go through with this, that there's going to be a direct connection and staff's going to be giving their input, as the community is, into making this work. And I think things would happen more quickly that way too, but it's really unclear from what's being proposed before us here. We need to get things done, so I understand where we are here, but those are my concerns.
Sure. A couple comments I would have, and then I'll take some questions if that helps. The concept that I think I've heard bounced around here for the last few minutes is that this person comes in as a consultant and works on this project with very little interface. Likewise, I think I've heard the impression out there that the departments did not take on an additional burden when the community center fire occurred. So let me try and describe how this person has been working with us over the last 2-month period to get the ball rolling. The process of losing a facility, working with insurance, reopening a facility, planning for the future is ominous and all-encompassing for departments such as ours. The departments are stepping up and contributing additional work, whether it be the Parks Department, the Parks crew, the Recreation Department, or the rest of the Public Works staff, my staff, and the administration building. What we have used Peter Ingram services to do is to coordinate between us, the insurance company, the specialists that are needed to be brought in. The city attorney is involved at times. We meet regularly. These meetings are occurring on a weekly, if not daily basis. He is in the building when he needs to be in the building. He's in the field when he needs to be in the field. He's working from his office when he doesn't need to access the resources that we have here. So for example, if you're on the Parks crew, you may not see Peter Ingram, but the Parks superintendent, the people that the Parks superintendent report to, the Public Works director, the city engineer, are all involved in working with this person, dealing with the insurance company, dealing with the firms that are cleaning the park, dealing with the vendors that are providing new materials to rehabilitate the park, whether it be the playground, the lawns, the tennis courts. So this is a project that at first blush doesn't look as complicated and as complex as it is. Finance is involved. We're tracking all expenses such that we can seek reimbursement from our insurance company. We're negotiating with the insurance companies. We're working with, as I said, vendors that are helping us clean up what was damaged. We're working with our employees. There's a number of employees, and we haven't talked about this, but don't minimize the impact on the employees that had worked many, many, many years in that facility, and their loss is great too. So there's, my point in mentioning that is many facets of this that don't appear to the first view of losing a facility. We're, through Peter, working with cities in San Mateo County who have recently bid and or rebuilt a park facility. Is it possible for us to take advantage of those RFP requesting proposals that other cities have done in the last 18 months that would meet legal requirements, that would shorten our process and thereby move us forward quicker? So there are a number of pieces to this puzzle. We do have a subcommittee. The subcommittee appointed by the mayor has come in and has met with this consultant and is informed of progress on a regular basis. We are now issuing communiques on an every 2-week-ish basis as to update the community and tell everybody concerned what's going on. There are a variety of pieces, as I keep saying, that are involved here. As to the mentions a few moments ago about frustration with the staff report off of the last meeting that was not coordinated with existing staff, if you can, during business hours, not necessarily in public, talk to me and give me an idea which staff report that was. We will be happy to work with the staff. You'll be happy to also note that every single report is signed by a department director. So whoever is in charge of that department is generating the information contained in that report. So there is communication in a variety of mechanisms, not just on this project, but throughout the organization. And then last, the executive team. The question was asked, what does that mean? That's a term that's used by me that has grown through the organization that refers to the department heads. So that would be finance, community development, public works, police, and fire. In some cases, those are our employees, and in some cases, they're employees of other agencies, such as fire and police, and in some cases, at this point, they are consultants. So it's a variety combination. We do include our city clerk too, excuse me, as I look up and look at her.
As I read this contract, there's a scope of work that's attached, so that tells you exactly what this person is going to do. And part of that is to use as many city resources as possible. So this person is basically a project manager we're hiring as a consultant. It's not build, construct, typical build, construct contract, right. As I think what I was hearing from Councilwoman Snyder. This is a contract for a specific person to provide certain scope of work, and the scope of work is all laid out here, as well as the price per hour, as well as the value of the contract, which is not to exceed $19,000 for 100 hours worth of work. And so I think that that is reasonable for this type of contract. So I think that down the line, what's going to happen is that, yes, there's going to be need for more expertise that the city doesn't necessarily have, because our staff is smart and talented as they are. They don't know everything. They can't be expected to know everything. They can't, because, like anybody, if you want to be a tradesman, you have to do it for thousands of hours. So they do a lot of different things, and they're great. But we're like every other city. We have to contract out because we can't afford to pay the pensions, most cities are going that way. Even the wealthy cities aren't doing that. I'm hearing those stories too. Stories of like, wow, you guys are, Anyway, so for this type of contract, I think that what we ought to do is ask if the scope of work is enough or not enough, and we should address that, if anything else, to weigh in how much, if the contract's of that value.
So one of the things I can tell you is that this is what we know at this point in time, and that's why it is a narrowly focused request for consulting assistance. As we go through this process, if the conditions change, we do come back to you. So, City Attorney.
Yes, I was going to comment on the fact that there was some concern expressed that there weren't more hourly rates. I think if you look at the last attachment before the resume, the project management budget, you will see that CSG has detailed a number of activities and tasks that they will be undertaking. And, we could go back and ask them for an hourly rate, but in this budget, for instance, under the various areas that the firm will be asked to undertake, they mention the senior project manager, the principal engineer, an associate engineer, and admin support. Next to it, they put, or across the column, they budget a number of hours that they assume will be covered, and then they give you a budget amount. And if you do some math, what it appears to me is admin support is being charged out at $85 an hour, and engineers are being charged out between $150 and $185 an hour. So depending upon whether they're associate principals or the senior. So we could ask them perhaps to give us another sheet that actually specifies hourly rates, but I believe there was some effort made to provide information as to what they would be charging.
Thank you for pointing that out. Probably the problem is we get our council packets sent to us as PDF. I convert to Word, and this I printed out. And when it printed out, it's illegible, and I forgot to go back and look at that. So thank you.
Fine.
But that said, if you look at the scope of services, and I have written many of these on both sides of this, it would say admin's going to do this task, or the chief lead is going to do that, or the engineer is going to do that. So let's just look at page 2 under the task 1, and it says, as a separate item, that we're going to make sure that only the park crews are going to come in and out of the egress on Laurel Avenue. I mean, really? Okay, so who's managing that? Somebody's going to be at the door every day to make sure that there's nobody else coming in and out of that doorway, just park personnel? It just seemed an odd scope of service for me. I can see that it's something that shouldn't be forgotten. It just seems to be a weird task. It's minimal, nothing, but it's in here. And I went through each one of these saying, okay, it's not that it's not a good thing to do, but why is it here? And why isn't then the more important things here? And frankly, I think our parks maintenance staff themselves can figure out whether or not they're going to come in on Laurel versus Lincoln Circle. I think that they've already done this work. There's a lot of reference in here that we're going to continue to find programming space. Maybe we haven't finalized all the contracts, and I've been talking to other council members, frankly, who had space, and just last Saturday said, yeah, they're still working on the contract for one space for one of the youth programs. So I know that this is still ongoing, and yet here it sounds as if nothing has been ongoing. And Councilman Lee, the $19,000 we've already spent. This is another $170,000 plus in addition to the $19,000. So I looked at the scope of services and said half of this should be done internally. If there's some special skills, if it is indeed needed, that you need an outside contractor to come in and make sure that the coordination meetings between all of the executive team and outside companies are there, perhaps.
And I would agree with
Perhaps.
that. And it says increasing the not to exceed amount. So whether or not we exceed that or not with the help of our staff that we have now, I think that's it.
Again, I'm going to fall back on the fact that we had to go rebid a contract that was done by an employee of this company, and I'm very uncomfortable with that.
I think that apology was already made, though, by this person. Go ahead.
And I don't know how many times that's happened in other cases. I have been hearing plenty of stories where things are coming through the consultant work that staff has to go back and rewrite, and I think we just have to stop it.
Councilmember Pappen.
Okay. I appreciate the fact that the consultant stepped up to and admitted their mistake, but I would be curious about if they ate the cost on that additional factor. Some of these things here I would like either updated or removed here. I believe the tennis courts have already been cleaned and ready for use.
They were supposed to get resurfaced, though.
That was already in our last budget, though.
They're not open as of this evening.
Right.
Okay, but I think we previously budgeted as a,
We passed the budget like a month before the fire.
I know, and I believe the resurfacing was already in there. I don't want to see us.
We turned down the contract.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you, colleagues. Appreciate that. Yeah, we tried to get somebody to bid that. But that, again,
So,
is in our budget.
okay,
We just didn't get it done.
Before you look through each detail, I want everybody to just please look at the motion. It's not to exceed. So if in fact these things don't need to be done because they've already been done, we have a manager. So what we're voting on tonight is not, we're basically voting on, can we go forward with this consultant? And instead of what we said at 19,000, it could come up to 200,000, 196,760. It's not nitpicking what they're going to do. Correct. We will be.
Let's talk about recovering insurance. A problem happened. You're going to get an amount. You get to stipulate how you spend that amount. Now, maybe because this is city or government insuring government, is there an extra pot of money that we wouldn't get if we didn't use an outside consultant? But otherwise, my house just flooded. I'm either going to fix my own drywall ceiling and then use the money from the insurance company to put in a new sink, or I'm going to have to pay for the new sink. It's not new money. It's not unused. It's not money just floating out there. I think it's money that we could otherwise use for something else. But I could be wrong because I've never dealt with ABAG-related insurance.
Councilmember Lee.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman Snyder, for enlightening me to the $19,000. I don't take that as. Any rate, so, God, what was I going to say?
Okay,
I got distracted.
Can I please keep everybody focused?
Yeah, I remember what I was going to say.
We have a motion.
Hang on,
for this
let me
consultant
finish.
not to
We
exceed.
understand the motion, Madam.
And part of your motion, I'm staying with the motion. I'm not moving away from that.
Because you forgot.
Yes, thank you. So, Councilwoman Snyder, you said that there were some important things that you think are left out. Could we have those? Because I'd like to know before we vote that those things should be considered and added to the scope of, should or should not be added to the scope of work. Thank you.
I'm not sure I meant important things in terms of scope of work. What I meant is typically the kinds of staff reports that come before us give one option, and they don't go into the detail that the city manager gave us tonight, saying that we basically have three options: hire an outside consultant, use in-house staff but take away some of their work on other projects, or hire additional staff, which is what I heard were the three options tonight. We don't see the cost breakdown in this staff report. I think we have a meeting next week. I don't know if you can turn it around that quickly, and I know we're shorter on council, but a staff report that came back that identified what the costs would be under those three scenarios would be something I'd like to see. I did go through the task orders to say, well, this should already be done and this should already be done. But I didn't go and say, okay, well, given here, this person should also be doing this. I didn't do that level of detail, knowing that we shouldn't micromanage. But since this is what I do professionally, it's second nature to me. So I'm sure there are things, but I actually would like to hear from our own public works staff, who I think are more than capable of doing this.
So if you do
And then hire the specialists. Let them identify the specialists and hire them.
professionally, do you have a name of a consultant that you might recommend?
For this particular task, no. I would like to see Public Works take another stab at the staff memo and the scope of services and bring it back to us, but remove the things that really don't need to be there.
Like what? That's what we're asking.
Like ensuring that Park and Rec staff only drive through the Laurel entrance. That's in the scope of services. What is that there for?
So the staff report and the scope of services has been reviewed by Public Works and by Recreation. This is a joint recommendation, to be clear.
That's good to know. Okay.
Well, I assuming that there's certain things that are really important, like making sure they're bonded and that sort of thing. And one of the things for putting the restriction on Laurels, because we don't want to upset the neighbors. We want to minimize the impact on the neighbors as much as possible, I'm assuming. And that's why Public Works has allowed it in and put it specifically in the staff report and contract. So.
Yes.
You two are on the subcommittee. Maybe you have more information than I have.
It's
Very little information on this
We try
entire
not to
process.
micromanage.
It's not,
Micromanaging information are two different things.
Well, I also done a lot of my fair share of environmental and engineering contracts, and I say this contract's pretty good.
thank you. Vice Mayor, please.
Yeah. I'd like to request clarification on the insurance reimbursement for this item. So in terms of the insurance claim, I know there are different pieces in the claim in terms of the building, the tennis courts, the park. Is this then an additional claim that we are presenting to ABAG and they said that they would cover it? Or is the $196,760 just going to be somehow taken out of whatever the total amount is? Is it like a separate claim with ABAG?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. My assumption is that we have a coverage limit. And what we're being told is this would be eligible for reimbursement. But it probably would all fall within the $3 million. Whatever is our coverage limit, it would be an included cost.
Less deductible.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I don't think our insurance has pockets of this, and this, but we can look into it. I could be wrong.
Well, it does have pockets of the parks facility and the rec facility, that type of
Right.
pockets, but in terms of.
Consultant
Right.
pocket.
Correct.
No
I would agree.
consultant pocket. Okay,
Several weeks ago, we talked about how the smaller, younger trees at the park were not getting water, and that we would sacrifice those but try to save the bigger trees. Clearly, it costs more to replace a bigger tree than a smaller tree. But if you've only got $100, you've only got $100. And you can't get more than that out of the insurance company, regardless of what pocket it is. So if we're spending money on a consultant who's then going to tell us how to hire more consultants, when it is possible within a short time frame for our own staff to do some of this, then that's money that could be turned back into the actual rebuilding or the actual design work. This isn't, the scope talks, but it's not into the actual completion of design drawing. This is really front-end project management stuff. There's a lot of other things we're going to be spending money on before we ever break ground.
so what I'm hearing from everybody is that we need a consultant that is going to use our staff in order to make all of this happen efficiently and effectively and in a timely manner. Now, the fact remains, if it exceeds $197,000 in this motion, then they'd have to come back to us. We don't want to spend $197,000 or whatever it is. We don't want to spend that. So in order to get started, we have to say that it would not exceed that amount. And everybody's best interest is to have what we have to facilitate it first. But somebody's got to be in charge.
I'm in charge.
Thank you. So you would watch the consultant.
Meet with them weekly, if not more often than that.
All right, so is there any other questions? Because I think everybody's concerns are all the same. I'm just hearing them in just various,
Yeah, it seems like we're going around in circles. So
Exactly.
I'm trying to find
Not
out if
quite.
there's anything new coming that
you're
we
not
need to
ready,
consider.
Councilmember
ready.
Peppin? All right, finish it
So
up.
I want to ensure that, okay, I agree, we need a specialist here, and we need to get moving on this process. What I would like to see is some built-in accountability. So if they do have a progress calendar here. But I would like to see it come back to us to see if they're actually keeping to this schedule, because the public, we want this moving, and we want it moving in the right direction. At that point in time, too, I would like to hear, hopefully we can agree on some benchmarks, that we would get reports as to how this is progressing, what amount of money is being spent, what is being accomplished, because that is what's key here. And,
I think that we would rely on you, on the subcommittee.
oh,
for that.
okay, we can do that. But I think, it's so important that the subcommittee would definitely recommend things come to the council as a whole, because
Yes,
it's
but we-
vital.
We rely on those updates.
Right,
I would
and
remind the council that you talk on a monthly basis about your strategic goals, and this is goal 6. So you do talk about what's been accomplished every 30 days.
Yeah, and in that same fashion, we're going forward.
And I would like to see, just as a special note here, that we're not rebuilding as was, should not be wasted any time on rebuilding the old facility, because I think the public was very clear on that. So on page 4, item D1. I don't think you need to waste any time on that.
Where are you?
Page 4, item D1, rebuild as was with code upgrades. I think we clearly heard from the public, and you should probably focus on 2, 3, 4, and 5. Page 4, item D, number 1.
Thank you.
This is a special night. So I guess the subcommittee is going to go.
Well, what I'm seeing here, perhaps what this consultant did was err on the side of being over-inclusive and giving you a very detailed scope. Some issues just did not need to be included. But here I'm seeing that what they're saying is they're going to manage the various alternatives that are possible and help the city come to an outcome. And what you're saying is D1 you've already discarded.
The public has disregarded that.
Well-
And I'm just going to say here, one issue I have with this consulting group is that Millbrae has special needs. We are significant in one way or another, and we have broached this with the consultant before. That I understand what you're saying, Joe, but, give us a little more consideration here. Don't waste our time or our money on things that don't need to be in here.
Well, one of the things that the council needs to keep in mind, 2 points. I've heard concern with this firm, and yet on other projects using the same firm, such as our downtown, what's going on in the downtown, I've heard compliments. Same exact firm, different personnel. As to the specific D1, one of the things we did clearly here at our community meeting was that we don't want to rebuild what we had. What we haven't done is talk about what we can afford and how we would finance what we do want. So in putting this item in, one of the concerns we have at this point in time is understanding the city's overall finances, our bonding capacity, our ability to bring in sponsorship donations. That conversation hasn't occurred. So somewhere between what we had and what everybody would want, if they could have everything they wanted, that conversation needs to occur and will occur when we begin working with, again, design consultants in the community to define what we want. At that point in time, we can begin to eliminate things, and I've encouraged the staff to not get ahead of the community and not eliminate things, but to outline options for discussion, because it's not the staff's decision, it's the community and the council's decision. So those conversations that I have with the staff may be part of why D1 is included.
I could tell you another reason why D1's included, because it is the standard practice for engineers and for insurance company to say, this is how much we're going to pay you for to replace what was there. So they need that study. It's not that they're saying we're going to build it. They just need that study to say, this is how much money we're going to get from the insurance company. And from there, then we can say, okay, well, we want more. We're going to need to raise this much more money because we can't live with just this, what we had. We because of today's needs, we need something better. So more energy efficient, more space, better use of space, that sort of thing. So in other words, engineers and insurance companies, they need a basis to draw from.
Okay, do we have a motion? We did have one more?
Joan, if you could get the breakdown per hour regarding
yes.
and amend that, just so we know moving forward.
They can provide that. That wouldn't be a problem.
That's easy. They're also tied to a total amount per job description. So for example, the administrative support, I think, was
Right.
so many hundreds of dollars. Once they near or exceed that, then we've got a cap.
We can ask for an hourly breakdown. I think we can extract it from the
Right.
information they've given us, but we can ask them
Let's have
to
them give it to us.
provide a list.
Either
That's
way, yes, can be done easily.
We have a motion. We have a second. You want me to read the motion? Is everybody clear? I said it 4 times. Let's vote.
The motion to execute Amendment 1 to the agreement with CSG Consultants Project Management Services for the Community Center Rebuild Project, increasing the not-to-exceed amount of the agreement from $19,000 to $196,000 $760, and extending the duration of the work from 2 months to 12 months is approved by a vote of 4-1 with Councilmember Schneider dissenting.
Okay, we're going to move to council comments, and we will start with Councilmember Schneider.
I've had several communications from an individual representing the Landings Lane.
Is your mic on?
I'm sorry. I've had several communications with a representative, a person who lives on Landing Lane, regarding the city completing our qualifications for something called, I'm sorry, you caught me before I got my notes here. It's floods. It has to do with flood zones. It has to do with an application that we have to apply to so that the city could then apply for grants for the residents who are in one of our several areas that are in flood zones. He has written a letter. I could read the letter into it, but I believe he asked the city clerk to send it to the entire city council. I just don't want it to be forgotten and hope that we can discuss it at goal setting next week. He also talked about train noise. That's all.
That's all? Vice Mayor?
Thank you. We had a very successful fun run last month on October 29th. We had approximately 400 participants there. We raised over $40,000 in sponsorships. And so I want to thank all the hard work that the team did in putting that together. Special shout outs to our planning commissioner, Maureen Davis, who did a lot of the work. Former mayor and Rotary president Robert Gottschalk was involved as well. And many others who spent a lot of time putting this event together. Let's see, I also attended the library JPA governing board meeting last week. We had a very interesting discussion about library policies and what you can and cannot do in the library. So a lot of it was basic sense, but good thing that we had these rules documented in case we happen to have any people that misbehave. We'll also be presenting the learning landscapes. It's kind of like a large trailer that allows kids to interact with different types of mapping technology and designing maps. It was designed by the Exploratorium. So that will be unveiled, I believe, in December and should be coming to Millbrae sometime early next year. So looking forward to that too. Thank you.
Councilmember Lee?
Thank you. Joy Life Club, which is a nonprofit organization that helps families going through cancers and cancer survivors, are having a luncheon on December 10th at Charcuterie Room at noon. The Mills Band Winter Concert is going to be on December 8th at 7 o'clock. Tickets are, I think, only $5, and it's a great event. They play really well. The Peninsula Clean Especially
the drummer.
Especially the drummer. The Peninsula Clean Energy, it's so far the opt-out rate is below 1%, which is phenomenal. 1.4. Thank you. Councilwoman Snyder was at that retreat as well, and they're plugging along, and I think that. Talked about the advisory committee and their missions and their ethnic codes for consultants. I was at the League of Cities, also had their leadership conference, so I was there for a couple of days representing the Asian Pacific Islander Caucus. And their goals for 2017 is same as last year. Surprise, surprise. Transportation, housing, and infrastructure. So given the fact, I got a few more minutes to explain transportation, obviously, more people are opting not to have cars, and we're trying to encourage people not to have cars. To housing, cities are having a tough time hiring people here on the West Coast because the cost of housing is just extremely high, and people, even doctors, can't find housing. So we're losing good candidates. The pool for finance directors and city managers are very small. We're having a hard time hiring those people as well because of the cost of services, and therefore all the cities are all in the crunch to pay more money for those services. Infrastructure is, as we all know, is crumbling, and it's been crumbling for the last 40 years. So that's something that we're still ongoing. The Redwood City, I went to Warren Slocum's hosted and the Lions Club of Redwood City hosted the vets event in Redwood City Square, and that was a pretty good event. And congratulations to the Lions Club for hosting the Monster March. It was very successful. So we had 2 successful events. Congratulations to city staff. The only comment I have about that is the traffic issue, of course. Very, very upset people, including myself, didn't know how to get out around the running route. So if we can do a better job at posting signs of helping people get out of the city, that would preclude that and make our event much more successful next year. Thank you.
Councilmember Pappen.
Along those lines, thank you to the Cappuccino Interact group that helped coordinate that day, and also, what was it, Johnny's Donuts? They were pretty good. They came all the way down from Marin. It was really a great event overall, so my compliments to the Vice Mayor Holliber and Mayor Oliva for, again, doing a great event, and the city's going to be fully reimbursed for their portion, so that's lovely. Along the lines, congratulations, the San Mateo County Smart Corridor construction completion happened November 10th. On their website, you will find a picture of the ribbon cutting and the projects that have been a part of this $35 million project. Includes upgrades to traffic signals, controls with remote management, and a whole bunch of other things. So congratulations there. Also, thank you very much to the entire city staff and the mayor for sending a letter to the San Mateo County Transportation Plan and issuing the concerns. Again, I think this is also on our website, I hope. So if anybody wants to check that out, my really compliments. Thank you, everybody, for doing that. There were 2 other things here. CCAG, there was a memorandum of understanding, San Mateo County Transportation Authority and CCAG, the implementation of 101 managed lanes projects. So I will turn this over to staff. They had made some adjustments here. I am not for the managed lanes on 101. I think we have some other alternatives, but traffic is bad enough. So we probably want to, this is probably on the CCAG website, but we should probably try to get this up too. Additionally, CCAG did a review and approval of a formation of a San Mateo County-wide Water Coordination Committee. This is all along the lines of sea level rising, stormwater pollution prevention, flood control, a whole bunch of different things that we are constantly talking about. The idea is that the cities, CCAG will have representatives so that we can all work together here. My understanding is that South San Francisco and San Bruno are already working with the airport. I would hope that we are too, as far as flood zones and sea level rising. So if staff is not yet getting what San Bruno and South San Francisco is, we need to jump on board with that one as well. And I think that's it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, well, I've spent every day for the last week going downtown Broadway and Hillcrest and checking out the progress of our downtown enhancement program. And I'm just so grateful and thankful for all the work that our city employees have been participating in. I've had the opportunity to stop in a lot of the businesses. I'll mention 2 that were pretty vocal to me about how excited they were and thankful and grateful. And that was Pape's Meat Company and Fiddlers around the corner, loving to see any sort of improvement, sort of a facelift, they called it, a lot of them. So thank you, staff, and our city manager for getting them out there and making that happen. I spent last Tuesday at a lot of celebrations. We were able to go over to our surrounding cities. We have a new supervisor, David Canaba. We have reelected Congresswoman Jackie Spear. I went to Pacifica, went to Burlingame and San Mateo to watch some of those initiatives that were going on in our county. So I had a great time. I tagged along with one of our councilwomen, brought her along, celebrated, and of course, we had the results of the presidential race. So with that being said, I'm going to say God bless America and God bless Millbrae. Thank you, everybody.
Let's make Millbrae great again.